Hi, my name is Chris Dixon. This is Founder Stories. Today we have Billy Chasen, the founder and CEO of Turntable FM. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
And you were our first guest ever on this show. Actually, we had a different name then. You had a different name then too, Sticky Bits. So thanks for coming back.
Yeah, sure. My pleasure.
So what's, I think most people probably know, but what is Turntable?
So Turntable is basically a way to listen to music online with other people in a room. And you can chat with them, you can DJ. It's basically a way to discover new music and hang out and talk online.
And there's a whole sort of game aspect to it too,
Yeah.
right? So like you go on as a DJ and then get voted up and then you sort of get points and things.
Yeah, there's all types of dynamics that are going on. The fact that there's 5 DJs, the rest of the people are in the audience just listening to the DJs. Each DJ takes a turn playing a song, and the audience and the other DJs can vote on the song if they like it or if they don't. If too many people say they don't like it, then the song skips that DJ and it moves on to the next DJ.
Okay. And so Sticky Bits is just completely different, right?
Yeah.
And I think last time we talked, it was like you guys had sort of like maybe adjusted your course or something.
Yeah.
And then
it was funny because our initial talk was about pivoting, and that was truly a pivot. It was like a
small pivot.
Small pivot, you know, a few degrees. It's like instead of going after customers, we're going to be a consumer-facing app.
Yeah.
Or I mean, instead of consumers, we were going to be business-facing. But yeah, this I classify more of a restart. It was a restart.
It's completely new.
Yeah.
And so how did that happen? I mean, so I guess you were maybe frustrated with Sticky Bits, I assume, and then meanwhile had this other idea, or how did that happen?
Yeah, well, it started that at the end of the year. It was the end of last year. I was just looking at kind of just the health of the company, all just a dozen different metrics of how are users liking it, you know, how successful are we, where's the product at, and everything was just kind of mediocre success. It wasn't like a complete failure. It wasn't like a runaway success. Yeah. And so I wasn't as excited going in like the next year. You know, it was like holiday season, and I was like, can I really see myself doing this for another year? Yeah. And it just wasn't there. It was just too hard of a battle that we were fighting to try and get businesses on there. I had like this huge just misconnection with how I thought things would run with brands. I really thought that it would be like, we'll deliver this awesome app that brands can use, and then they'll bring the crowd and we'll use the app with us. And what really ended up happening is brands were like, okay, this is great, like let's test this, and you bring the crowd. And so we had just kind of like this catch-22. Well, we thought you were going to bring the crowd, and they're like, well, we already have that crowd. We want a new crowd. Yeah. And so there was really no way to kind of give it traction. So in looking at that and talking to my investors and just kind of brewing over it, I couldn't figure out like just another kind of small pivot. So I thought to myself, well, if I can't really figure out what that pivot is, let's just do something completely different. And Turntable happened to be the top idea on my idea list that I.
And that just like around. Sort of like you just sort of been thinking about it for a while, and it just was your next best idea kind of thing.
Yeah, I had the actual idea a couple of years ago, and it was in my head. I thought, if there was any other company that I would try and build and go for, it's this, because you can't find a way to do this online. There was no way online to listen to music together at the same time. Like people, and I still do this now as well, like when you want to show somebody a song, we send YouTube links to each other. But if you want to actually listen at the same time and go back and forth and, hey, check out this song, check out that song, there was no way of doing that.
And it was basically sort of taking like a real life experience of being in a club, for example, right? And just sort of putting that online. And
yeah, and that's how it started. I was actually in my sister's car, and we were driving, and I would say, oh, listen to this song, and I would plug in my iPhone, and then we'd start rocking out. She'd be like, I love that song, and then she's like, oh wait, take my iPod and put on this song, and I would go back and forth, and that's when I really thought, well, you can't really do this online. Like, there's nothing that does this, and that was kind of like some of the best ideas that you can find are the ones that exist offline that don't exist online yet.
Yeah, because you kind of know people already enjoy that experience. They just don't have it a way to do it yet.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing with music. Music is inherently social. That's how we consume music offline. We go to concerts together. There used to be record parties where you just gather around and listen to records together. And then what happened over time is that we started getting more and more isolated, and we just kind of plug in with our headphones and listen to music. And so online is really missing that social component of how do you listen to music with other people.
Yeah. So that must have been really hard to do, though, like, because you just, like, to do that restart, like, I mean, I can imagine, like, you convince, you have all these employees and investors who you've spent presumably months at some point convincing them why Sticky Bits is a great idea. And then, right, I mean, then to say, hey, we're completely changing it. And this is not what you originally, I mean, you had the same, I assume you had the same investor base, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, sometimes people are like, hey, I didn't sign up for, you know,
Right.
I didn't sign up for a music thing, or maybe some of the employees say that, like, I signed up for.
And that's what happened, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, there were two choices to make. There was either, let's just shut down the company and say Sticky Bits isn't working, and we all go off on our own, or we drastically change the company. And I think everybody, my investors at least, wanted to still work with me, and they said, you know, we'll follow you. We trust you and your opinion, which is, those are the types of investors you want, those investors that just have that confidence behind you. And so I pitched them, I basically pitched them this idea, and all of my investors, except for one, said that they were behind this, that they loved the idea. And the only reason that the other investor dropped out was simply, he's like, I just don't touch music because it's a hard, complicated space that I don't really have any expertise in. So he's just like, you know, I'll let you go off. But what happened was, we did have employees that, and I didn't actually, one of, you know, as a CEO, you're always trying to like just learn from other CEOs and learn from your own mistakes. And one of the mistakes I made was I didn't message it as well as I could have to my team. I basically came to them one day and was really just kind of like, we're going to do this now.
So like yesterday were coding Sticky Bits, and then like today it's like a new thing, kind of.
To some degree.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't that radical.
Yeah.
But in my head, like looking back at it, it kind of felt like that. And so we actually had a lot of our team decide to not work on the music app. They just weren't. They weren't in line with it. They either weren't interested in music, or they really liked Sticky Bits, or they saw other opportunities. And really, the only people that stuck around were the people that were also like really into music.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard, right? Because there's, I guess, two things going on. One is they may have said, hey, you know, I really wanted to work on, I don't know what it is, like, you know, real offline, online, or all the different themes of Sticky Bits. And secondly, like, it's hard to just maintain confidence, I think, in the team. You know, if you said like, hey, this thing I said was so great 6 months ago, now I'm saying it's not worth doing anymore, right? Like,
yeah, and you know, that's terrifying too, because I thought Turntable was an amazing idea, and I thought that it could get the traction that it has gotten. But you don't know at the time. It's not built. It's just a concept in your head. And the worst thing that can happen is you say, trust me again, and you build that up, and then well,
then you're probably, it's really hard.
And nobody likes it again, and then you're just like, well, you know, crap, I guess I don't know what I'm doing.
I actually think in consumer, I would argue consumer internet companies should they don't do enough of what you did, I think. I think like too many people stick with something that's just not working. Yeah. Because of all this momentum and how hard it is to change. Yeah,
knowing what the signs are and to recognize them, and so you don't enter this Walking Dead kind of startup is really important.
And so, like, and those signs just sort of I mean, it's interesting you mentioned that you sort of were doing okay. I almost sometimes think that's like the worst thing to be doing, right? Because if it's like, you know, we've seen some startups, I won't say who, but like the launch was like a train wreck, right? And then they pivot, and it's sort of obvious. And then there's a bunch of startups where it's just sort of like, okay. Yeah. And you feel like you have an asset and it's sort of working, and maybe it's going to be an inflection point and it'll take off. Yeah. But like, hey, you know.
Startups that just like, you know, go straight up.
Well, then there's like the Instagrams, or you guys, I guess, since then, you know, since the relaunch.
You know that it's working, you know it's great. And the ones that flop completely out of the gate, you know you have to walk away from. Yeah. It's exactly like what I mean with like, it's just like kind of Walking Dead. Like you're kind of the only one that doesn't see the writing on the wall, that it's going down and out, and for whatever reason it just doesn't stick, it doesn't resonate with people, and it just doesn't take off.
And so how do you separate, you know, something that's just not going to take off versus something that maybe just hasn't you know, been the right, you know, the right mix of features, the right partners, or whatever? I mean,
I don't know. I think it's a gut feeling. Yeah. Because there are some startups that they dug their heels in and they waited it out, and they said this will be a big thing, and it takes a lot to go through that and actually have that confidence to keep pushing through.
Yeah, I was just thinking today, like I read an article about Evernote. I remember using Evernote in 2003. Like I don't think people realize how old Evernote is, right? And now it's apparently wildly successful, but like there's a lot of apps like that. Like they've just been around forever, and people don't sort of realize. And then suddenly, like I think maybe in the case of Evernote, like the iPhone hit, and it became this like radically more useful app, right? And they just stuck it out, you know. And sometimes it works. It's a very hard judgment to make. I don't know.
I mean, I think it's easier if you have a problem that you're actually solving, and you use it. Actually, one of the best kind of indicators of that Sticky Bits wasn't what we should be doing is that we were all building the app and none of us used the app.
Yeah.
Over time, we just stopped using it. I would never open the app. And so there are like indicators like that. So I would feel like maybe the creators of Evernote, they were still using it like crazy. Even Twitter at the beginning, it was just kind of like, what is this? What's going on? I think even some employees were kind of questioning it, and eventually they started getting it, and then it just blew up. But that also took a bit of time until it peaked and started turning into something everybody was using.
Yeah, that's true.